So friends, we are discussing the current affair of the month of September. In this we were discussing that how various kind of international organizations are taking part in the research and development, and in international relation where India stands for its diplomacy and various policies on the global alliances. So India recently joined a membership of Quad group. And what is Quad? That is a quadrilateral exercise group between India, Japan, USA and United Kingdom. So there was a first ever personal meeting held by the Quad members, and which was held between India, US, Japan, and it was started in 2007 for the sideline of Asian Association. So let us look into the brief background of Quad meetings. In 2004, there was a meeting by Tsunami Core Group, and that was again a part of Japan, India, USA meeting. That again leads to backdrop of generation of 2006 meeting by Japan as an act of Arc of Freedom proposal. Although we see that there was a hegemonial counter of China. So in the world map, when we see that this is China, Russia, Japan over there, and here is India. So what is happening, that there is a expansionary policy of China. China is expanding its boundary, claiming that its partly and partial island are its part. So in order to counter the hegemony of China, what we are having? We are having the Quad group, that is a quadrilateral group of India, USA, UK and Japan. This group will look into the matters that are hailing for the rising arms of China, and they will counter the rising influence of China in Indo-Pacific region. Now, in 2007, Quad security dialogue at first meeting at Malabar exercise held between India and other Quad members. Then in 2008, dissipated Australia with joining the member of Quad. So earlier it was a triangular group, India, US and Japan. Joining of Australia leads to creation of a quadrilateral group with 4 members over here. In 2011 and 20, trilateral membership between Quad members, and Quad meeting in 2017 held in Manila round, where Quad members discussed that how to counter influence of China. Then in 2021, there is Maiden Quad Summit which held recently, about which this news says. So what it signifies, that Japan depends heavily on open sea economy. China asserts its sovereignty over this partly and partial, and it also opens the China Sea. That means the every island belonging to the China Sea that are a part of Chinese territory. China is having a imperialistic vision. So in order to counter, Japan vary for Chinese military buildup, and it caters the Japanese need. Then there is Australia, which get influenced by the rise of China in terms of economy and military power, as its influence also seen in the Indo-Pacific region, and it has relied on the US to play external balances. Quad complements Australia's other bilateral, regional and multilateral cooperation, included with the ASEAN, that association of Southeast Asian nations such as Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand and so on. Further, as US enters into the meeting, Indo-Pacific security is complemented by another superpower addition, that is United States, which promises to strengthen the security and the measures of Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. So it has a trade deal of 1.9 trillion worth of trade passing through the region. Earlier we see that in Barack Obama regime there are pivot to Asia policy. In Barack regime there was pivot to Asia, and after that they indulge into Quad meeting. And what it does, it lays the growing willingness of challenges in the regional status quo versus to the United States. Next part is what is the measures that are taken by these countries in order to cater the COVID scenario. जब कोविड सिचुएशन होता है मित्रों, तो हम देखते हैं कि पैंडेमिक लॉकडाउन में बहुत सारे ट्रेड डील्स चाइनीज़ इकोनॉमी के द्वारा हो रहे थे, एंड दैट डील वाज काउंटर्ड बाय द क्वाड ग्रुप. So Quad group provided a build back better health security in the Indo-Pacific region, providing the COVAX to 1.2 billion citizens, and it provided 100 days mission to have safe, effective vaccination, therapeutic and diagnostic availability. Then it has infrastructure of G7 and Quad infrastructure build back better world B3W, which is having coordination of respective approaches. Further, Quad is also cooperating on the climate fronts. जब climate की बात करते हैं, then there is COP21, COP22, COP23 leading to COP26, and there is common but differentiated responsibility CBDR, and there is again CDRI. So these are all part of climate summit. And Quad also take forth the shipping task force aims to stabilize 2 or 3 Quad low emission. Then Quad having the zero emission shipping corridor by 2030, also having a hydrogen initiative as a clean green fuel by wind, solar and hydrogen energy distribution. It also propels the climate and information service task force built for the coalition for disaster resilience infrastructure, and also providing the technical assistance to the Quad nations. Further, we see that development in Quad leading to the critical and emerging technologies, that is technological design development standards, in which we see that how Quad members are designing the governance and critical infrastructure in terms of environment and emerging technologies. Further, it provides supply chain security, semiconductor materials, capacity identities for vulnerable sections, and biotechnology scanning. These are again diversified forms of the Quad technology. Next part is solidifying and defend the rules-based international order. So Indo-EU, that is European Union, comes into force, and European Union created by Maastricht Treaty on the European platform, in which every European country is in having economic cooperation. So we are having a development of new ones with like-minded countries and level playing field in open and fair environment trade and investment. Establishes supportive trade and economic relations with the region. Further, EU seeks new digital partnership with Japan, South Korea and Singapore. Further, it is letting rise in the completed financial of EU, having artificial intelligence for the European Union with terms of Australia, Indonesia, New Zealand and other countries. It also pursues the long-standing multilateral and regional security needs, and other the Bretton Woods institutions such as United Nations and the IMF, International Monetary Fund and World Bank, plus ASEAN nations and African Union, which is contributing to the sustainable development also at the SDG goal of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 16, 17, 13 and other goals of poverty reduction, education, employment creation and such forth. Now, what is AUKUS? Again, which makes news? Australia, USA and UK, that makes the part of 3 groups leading to a new front of Australia, UK and USA, that is AUKUS. Now recently Australia, UK and US have announced a trilateral program of AUKUS, and how it is different from Quad. So Quad is a 4 grouping excluding UK, and this includes USA. These all are measures to counter only China's hegemonial policies. Okay, remember this fact. Now Quad is not a military alliance, but AUKUS is also a military alliance in which any member nation, if get attacked by another, then other member will help to protect it. Somehow we see that how NATO is getting failure in this modern day scenario. Now what is AUKUS Quad? Now AUKUS is different and Quad is different. So how it is different? We see that Australia, UK and US is AUKUS, and Quad is India, Japan, USA and Australia. So these 4 are in Quad. AUKUS comprising of Australia, UK, US. It is a multilateral grouping for doing military exercises and strategic group. Further, the Quad is aimed for rising China's influence as a multilateral grouping in terms of economic and security purpose. What AUKUS does? AUKUS does for development of planning strategies to counter China again. Okay, so write in this way whenever such questions is asked in the UPSC prelims as well as mains point of view. Now, the thing is that India, UK and US coordinated in AUKUS meeting. Then the nation with left alone was France, which is again a P5 member of the United Nations Security Council. After facing that disenchantment, France again became restless and recently proposed to join the AUKUS meeting. So AUKUS what aims to provide for technology pursuit. That means it also shares the technologies developed by other such nations. Further, it provides opportunity for the Quad's agenda to keep in India Pacific region free of any kind of tensions and hegemony. AUKUS also provides measures for the maritime exercises, security and efforts in the COVID kind of pandemic situation. Further, climate change and cooperation in critical technologies and building of infrastructure is also a motto of the AUKUS system. So we see that why France is upset about AUKUS. So it has lost mega submarine deals to the USA. That is again a part of strategic deal of France. You see, then it has been abandoned in US $43 billion plan by Australia, and which again faces a step back in the economic system with vis-a-vis France. Then France was excluded from AUKUS security pact despite France's strong presence in the region. It feels humiliated and being kept away in the dark about the programs of planning. So that is why France is being facing betrayal. France के साथ क्या हो गया? धोखाधड़ी at global international forums. That is why France is upset with AUKUS. Now, what are Indo-France deals? भारत और फ्रांस का क्या concern है? India-France put forward various deals and partnership in terms of economy, maritime cooperation, medicines and technology transfer. France also provided the recently Rafale deal in which Rafale fighter jets were introduced in Indian Army and Indian Air Force. Then also it ends for United States 2015, Japan 2019, with other two countries having space security cooperation. Cooperation with domains of space confidence enjoy with other nations through SSD. Remember this, space station development. There is space environment, यानी अंतरिक्ष यात्रा, अंतरिक्ष program, various kind of modules for space majors that are all part of India-France relationship. It threads to safe, secure, sustainable and continued access of outer space. Now what is the significance? India stands for space orientation with help of the other programs, and other countries focus more on space security, protect space assets, rapid growth of counter space challenges, and provide global navigation satellite system, space situational awareness and space security programs with France. India also have partnership at the global governance level with help of France. That is why France is important. Now the scheme which comes into the news is early harvest scheme, and which is different from free trade agreement. So what is early harvest scheme? Whenever there is certain crop produced, किसानों के द्वारा कोई भी फसल उगाई जा रही है, and that crop goes for the procurement at the market, then the harvest period is not to be lagged and it is early harvested. So this is early harvest scheme. It is a precursor of free trade agreement and having two measures of trading partners. So there is product for tariff liberalization pending in inclusion of FTA. FTA में क्या होता था कि there is reduction of the trade barriers and tariffs that are imposed by the friend countries. तो वो फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट के द्वारा उसे रिड्यूस करते थे एंड दे अलाउड अदर कंट्री टू ट्रेड freely across the border. But in the early harvest system, there is a reduction of the trade barriers that were emerged, building a secure confidence measure. So that is again a part of confidence building measure. Now, good example of early harvest scheme is between India and Thailand, which was signed in October 2003, and several products were identified to be reduced to zero in the phased manner. Now, what are other type of trade deals? We see there is preferential trade agreement (PTA). PTA agreement में क्या होता था? Suppose there is a Nepal which is trading with India. भारत नेपाल के साथ PTA साइन हो गया, तो क्या होता था कि जो भी चीज़ें हमें नेपाल से लेनी है या हमें नेपाल को बेचनी है, in terms of the selling items to the Nepal or India, they will be having preferential mechanism. यानी कि if China is demanding the same product, USA is demanding the same product, but as a part of preferential country and part of preferential trade agreement, Nepal will supply that product to India itself and neglecting China or USA. So that is a part of comprehensive economic partnership agreement, and which goes for the terms describing package of goods, services, investment modules, intellectual property rights, competition, etc. Now, what is custom union? Custom union is a union of various countries in terms of industries and enterprises to have a zero duty amount to themselves in the trade. कोई भी country के साथ कोई भी trade deal हो रही है, then it will cost a zero trade duty, शून्य दर पे ये लेन देन किया जाएगा. That is part of custom union. So there is South African Custom Union (SACU), which is an example. Now, what is a common market? A common market is a market having a custom union with provisions to facilitate free movement of labor and capital. Then it is a common market having the same example. Now, what is economic union? We see there is custom union, and what is economic union? So economic union is a common market extended to the various countries having same fiscal and monetary policies and shared executive and judicial legislative institutions. So वैसी countries जिनके judiciary, legislature and executive having the same potential to share the economic values of trade and policies that will be part of economic union. Remember this data. Economic union में क्या आते हैं? The parts of legislative, that means the law enacting body of various nations, then judiciary of other nation, and there is executive of other nations. Okay. So they all are part of economic union.